Well, welcome, ladies and gentlemen, boys and girls, children of all ages, to the Dads Watching Sports podcast. It is Sunday, November 22nd. I am Michael Draper, joined as always by Kyle Castles. Kyle, how are you doing today, sir?
Oh man, I'm really good, right? Saints without Drew, Taysom Hill. Shock it wasn't Jameis. Taysom Hill came in 24-9 over the Falcons, and then those terrible Packers went down, which was good because now the Saints are number one in the NFC. So you can't take the smile off my face.
That you can. And, man, throwing shots at our guest that's coming up here in a second, who's the Packers fan, Kyle. I'm sure we'll get something from Bill about that. But if you're joining us on the live stream through our Facebook page or YouTube channel, thank you for checking us out. Go ahead and hit that comment section. Shoot us some comments throughout the show. We would love to hear from you, our takes on whether it be what's going on in the NFL, college football. We're going to talk, Kyle, top 5 Thanksgiving side dishes. So we want to hear from everybody that's checking us out on the live stream. And if you're listening to us via downloading the podcast, thank you for doing that. Go ahead and hit that subscribe button, give us a rate, and send us a review. We would love for you to be a part of that. But Kyle, I am very excited. You know, we're big college football fans, and we are always looking to bring on guests that are deeply involved in the field of college football, because let's face it, that's where it's at, man. And so we are excited to be joined by Bill Bender. Bill is the national college football writer for the Sporting News. Bill, how are you today, sir?
Yeah, I'm doing well. Thanks for having me on. Terrible Packers. I don't know about all that. You know, it's a long season. There's still 6 games to go.
Absolutely. Yeah. Kyle throwing in shots already. I can't believe that. So, Bill, again, thanks for coming on the show. We really appreciate it. I know your time is probably really busy right now, so we appreciate you taking the time out. But tell us just a little bit about yourself before we get into some college football. Tell us about yourself and about your family.
Yeah, you know, I'm an Ohio kid. I grew up here and been working for Sporting News since 2007, went to Ohio University, and we live in Central Ohio. And you know, like everybody else, we're going through this season. I can tell people all the time, you kind of got to do it one day at a time. You know, tomorrow we don't know what's going to get canceled, what's going to get dropped, and trying to be safe. And I sat there and watched a game with my son, and you learn from it. I told him after, you know, MVS fumbled the football, and you just say, you know, I think one of the coolest things that happened tonight is, you know, he's out on Twitter saying, "Thank you, God. Without failure, there is no growth." And I think that's probably the best tweet I've read in months, considering election season just ended.
Yeah, no doubt about that. You very rarely see someone kind of responding like that. Well, tell us what you do there for the Sporting News, and then tell us a little bit about your family. I know you and I kind of bounced back and forth about this visit on our show, and you talked about some kids being involved with youth sports. So first, tell us about what you do there for the Sporting News, and then about your family as well.
Oh, yeah. I mean, we're a sports family. Top to bottom. My daughter plays basketball, and my son's playing basketball. I officiate. My wife runs the bowling program. I mean, we're one of those families that sports is really a super important part of our life. And we get out and do that. My wife actually was a pretty good college bowler. So, you know, it lends itself to what we do for a living. You know, I'm lucky to be covering college football and helping with the NFL at Sporting News. And, you know, it's been one of those weird seasons where we've been writing a lot off the couch. But, again, lucky to have those opportunities. Yesterday was not the greatest college football day, but, you know, I'm the guy that was up late at night watching Michigan and Rutgers play 100 overtime. So today was no different.
Yeah, it seems like especially those ABC games with Herbstreit and Fowler, man, they just can't get a close game to save their life. And then, you know, I'm a Kentucky fan, and my Wildcats just got pummeled yesterday by 60 points, which I knew that was going to be a tough game, but I did not anticipate that happening. So you mentioned your kids and you know, being able to cover college football. I know that, you know, in a non-COVID year, you're probably traveling a little bit here and there to do that. So what does the work-life balance look like for you, having the family and then also this great career, you know, covering such a great sport like college football?
Well, I mean, you got to do both. I mean, like today, for example, I can walk you through a Sunday in my house. We did get up, I just became an official, certified, you know, basketball official. So when
nice.
Officiated youth basketball for about 3 hours. Got home, we get in the car, we run to my son's baseball practice. While he's at baseball practice, went over and watched some of the Packers game. Then we get home, and all along, I had known, one of the worst thing that happened today, honestly, was that Joe Burrow got injured, and seeing a quarterback of his caliber go down with a season-ending injury. And I don't know, you guys probably don't know this, but I grew up in Southeast Ohio, so my kids are already looking up to Joe Burrow as kind of a role model.
Sure.
And the way he handles himself, and what we saw from him last year was incredible, and what he's done for the Bengals so far. So whenever an athlete goes down like that, I feel for him, and you hope that he comes back. You hope that Cincinnati gets a little bit better offensive line around him, and I think he will. He plays the game the right way, and you hate to see players like that go down.
Yeah, without a doubt. We're talking with Bill Bender. He's the national college football writer for the Sporting News, talking all things college football, dad life, the NFL, anything in between. Bill, so you've mentioned your kids and watching sports. What are some of the sports that they enjoy watching the most?
Oh, my son's just like me. He's 10, and we sat and watched the Packers tonight, and we watched. He'll watch college football, and I've got him molded so. They're sitting there like yesterday, for example. One of the advantages of working more at home than in the press box is, like, Grant, go upstairs and watch a little bit of that game. Tell me what's going on. Tell me what I'm missing. And he'll spot it. Maybe he'll come down and listen, and then you try to teach along the way. And it's fun. He's into sports. My daughter, same way. We finally got a basketball in her hand this winter, and she gets into it. She's probably got more of my personality where she gets pretty fired up, and the temper we've got to watch, but I'm just a guy that when I was growing up playing sports, the most important thing to me was always, the team had success first, and try to instill that with kids.
Yeah, absolutely. And I think that's something, our kids, Kyle and mine, are not old enough to really get involved with youth sports yet. I've got a 4-year-old and a 1-year-old, and he's got I think a 6, a 4, and almost a 1-year-old. And so we aren't quite there in terms of like really competitive, but I know with a shadow of a doubt, both of our kids will be those highly competitive, probably temper tantrums every once in a while after the games as well. So let's talk a little bit about college football. One thing I wanted to ask you was, what was it like covering college football for half of the teams in NCAA, and then preparing and doing basically like previews for like the Big Ten, the Pac-12, et cetera?
No, this has been a hard year. I've been doing college football for Sporting News since 2013, and you have a rhythm to it. I always tell people, for example, this week, what it kind of hit me is normally this week we're getting ready for Thanksgiving, and then it's rivalry week, and you got 1 week till conference championships, and the staggered starts. I mean, I'll be honest with you, September before the SEC got rolling, it didn't really feel like college football season yet. And then the Big Ten jumps in, then the Pac-12 jumps in, and these last couple of weeks, I mean, the playoff chase is still very much the same. I mean, we're dealing with the same 4, 5, 6 teams as usual. You mentioned being a Kentucky fan. I mean, it's not rocket science that Alabama's the best team in the SEC.
Right.
Or Clemson and Notre Dame. One of the best moments of the season for me, growing up in this part of Ohio, going to a Catholic school for 12 years. I'm not a Notre Dame fan or anything, but I have plenty of friends that are. And, being able to watch that Clemson-Notre Dame game and to have games like that, at least we've had that this year. And I think there'll be a couple more down the road here when we get to some of those, I like to call them kind of like the heavyweight fight games. There are a couple more on the schedule. Yeah,
absolutely. So Kyle is a self-proclaimed person who loves everything going haywire and just complete. So I know he had a question about BYU and Cincinnati that he wanted to ask Kyle.
Oh, sure.
Yeah, so, I'm looking at this landscape, and there's definitely a chance that we have a one-loss ACC champion, a one-loss Pac-12 champion, obviously a 2-loss or better Big 12 champion. So BYU, Cincinnati, they continue to run the table and they're undefeated. Can we see them jump into that playoff discussion into the top four?
He's got a unique opportunity here. I kind of wrote about this yesterday, and BYU's schedule might not be. This is a weird way to put it. I think Cincinnati has a better chance to make the playoff, but I think if they played head to head, I would probably pick BYU because their quarterback, their offense, their defense, and they've blown out everybody they played. They need a couple things to happen. So if you're let's say, and I've got friends that root for UC, so I've kind of told them, here's your step by step. You got to go undefeated. You want Notre Dame to lose this week to North Carolina, and then if they win, you want Notre Dame to beat Clemson, because then you get Clemson out of the way. You want Oregon and USC to lose, period, because I think the committee may put a Cincinnati team in over a one-loss Pac-12 champion. You need Alabama and Ohio State to win out. Just take care of those conferences, and then you're sitting there at the end, and then you look at the playoff field, and if Clemson or Notre Dame has 2 losses, you would go Ohio State, Alabama, ACC champ, and then maybe Cincinnati. I think it's possible. Some people don't, just because it is a group of 5 school. If they go undefeated, there's a decent chance. I think if those other things happen around them, they've got a chance. And I always say this, there's 3 rules to get in the college football playoff, and they're going to have to break one of them. And those 3 rules are, 1, be a Power 5 conference. They'll have to break that. 2, go undefeated. 3, don't lose twice. If you do those 3 things, more often than not, that's what you might get stuck in that last argument, but you've got a good chance to make the playoff if you do those.
Yeah, and wouldn't that be awesome to see Luke Fickell going against Ohio State in the playoff, having been kind of the interim guy there for a little bit? So that would have been that would be pretty neat. So Kyle and I are both kind of here in SEC country. He's a Mississippi State guy. Like I said, I'm a Kentucky guy. The one opening we already have is South Carolina. There's been a lot of names that are floating around there, but what do you think is the best fit for the Gamecocks?
I think Billy Napier's the guy that I've kind of zeroed in on for that. Now, Jamie Chadwell, they're going to look at him based on what they've done. Hugh Freeze is going to draw a lot of reactions. I don't know if they'll go there, but I know he can coach. But I just look at Billy Napier, a guy that has the South Carolina connections, has done a great job at Louisiana for more than 1 year, and fits into what they're doing. I mean, with the teams you guys like, I think Kentucky, it's about fit with Mark Stoops. One of the things that he's done to elevate their football program is, honestly, he's recruited well in Ohio. He's got guys like Benny Snell out of Ohio and others. And I think he does a good job in North-South recruiting. Now, Mississippi State, this may take a little more time, but Leach's system is what it is, and he's going to need guys that can run that system. I always say he's unapologetic in how he runs that system. It's going to produce varying results, but they can still win games with that. So, and I like Mike Leach is highly entertaining. So the entertainment value there is off the charts.
Yeah.
You ready? I'm sure Kyle's already ready for that Egg Bowl with Lane. They haven't canceled that one yet. They better not.
I know.
I hope not, because I need all the press conferences this week of Lane and Coach Leach going head to head. SEC media days will be fun too if we can get back to a little semblance of normal.
Yeah, I'm hoping so too. Everybody talks about what normal is. For me, normal is I'm sitting here talking to you guys, watching the Chiefs Raiders, hoping that this week's going to be fun. And you mentioned, Kyle, you like thriving off chaos. Well, one thing with college football, at least the last couple of years, there hasn't been much of that because it's become a sport that is, it's top heavy more than ever. Ohio State, Alabama, and Clemson are 1A, 1B, 1C, in my opinion. Alabama and Clemson probably 1A, 1B, but Ohio State's right there. And the reason that is those 3 programs develop 5-star guys and get them ready to be first-round picks better than everybody else. And it's not – and then, the other thing, it's a quarterback play. Ohio State's quarterback play is so much better than everybody else in the Big Ten. You look at that Clemson game, right? BJ Uiagalelei, it wasn't the reason they lost to Notre Dame.
Yeah, not at all.
Game. Yeah.
Absolutely. Well, Bill, we've got one more question for you, and then we'll let you go. We know you got some NFL to cover as well, but this week is obviously Thanksgiving week, and it's going to look a lot different for a lot of folks, but it's still that week. So later on the show, we're going to give out mine and Kyle's on this, but we wanted to get your ranking. So give us your top 5 Thanksgiving side dishes, ranked 5 to 1.
Well, you guys are Southern boys, so it's probably going to be a little bit different than mine, being an Ohio kid, like I said, and unapologetic about it. I mean, the 5 things other than the turkey that got to be on the plate would probably be, 5, well, I don't know if I can do it 5-1. Mashed potatoes are a must. You got to have the gravy there. You got to have stuffing. Stuffing's my 1. Mashed potatoes would be 2. I like sweet potatoes, too, so they'd probably be 3. I'm not a big green bean casserole guy. I'll eat it, but I'm not like huge on it. It's not necessary. I'll put it that way. So what have I got left? I like corn for there, and then that might be about it for me. What's left? There's a couple more out there, but those are the important ones. But I will say, and it's not a side, but like my wife, nobody in my family or my in-laws, none of them like pumpkin pie.
Ooh.
If it's not there, I'm just like upset. It has to be there. That is the tradition, and that's good for me because I'll eat the whole thing if I have to.
Absolutely, yeah. I'm a big fan myself. Well, Bill, thanks so much for taking the time out to come on the show. Again, we appreciate what you do covering college football. We enjoy some of the stuff that you guys put out there at the Sporting News, and yeah, thanks for the time, and hope you have a wonderful Thanksgiving, and hopefully we can have a great finish up to the college football season.
Yeah, and you guys can reach out anytime. Let's do this again soon, and have a happy Thanksgiving. Be safe down there, and just enjoy what we have. Thank you so much. Absolutely.
All right, thanks a lot, Bill. We'll talk to you soon.
Thanks, Bill.
All right, Kyle, that was fun. Bill Bender from the Sporting News. We will be back after the break to talk some more. And then we also have another guest coming up at the end of the show, but we'll be right back on Dad's Watching Sports. Coming up next week on Dad's Watching Sports, the dads are joined by a mom. Draper's former college broadcast partner and current high school football coach, Melissa Tomlinson, joins the show to talk all things mom life, coaching high school football for over a decade, and maybe even telling some Draper college stories. Also, the dads discuss the best rivalries in sports, that and much more on episode 43 next week on Dad's Watching Sports.
We're listening to Dad's Watching Sports.
Now back to the show. Look at that.
I love it.
That was, for those of you not checking us out on our live stream, that was my beautiful children welcoming us back to the show.
Wonderful.
Emma wanted to be a part of the show. I said, let's do it. So there you go. All right, Kyle. So we'll get into some additional college football talk. I know we did a lot of that, but we'll talk a little bit about that later here in the show. But, one thing that I had on our rundown was an important announcement by yours truly. And I don't know what's going on back there.
So the wife just walked in and she can't be quiet. So I'm getting a lot of background noise.
She's our legal attorney. She's our legal representation. So I can't say too much.
She is legal representation. That's true.
Yeah. So thank you, Lauren. We always appreciate you digging us out of the holes that we get ourselves into here on the show.
Let's be honest. That's just me.
Yeah, that's true. I think we might need to eventually invest in a dump button. I have a mute and I can remove you, but we need a dump button. But anyways, special announcement on the show. So Kyle, I don't know if you remember or not, but when we were a team of 3 back a little while ago, we had a little wager amongst our group about it was baseball, and whoever's team finished, we all picked teams, and whoever's team finished first in baseball was going to get, kind of a pat on the back, and the team that finished last, there was going to be a donation involved where that person was going to have to make a donation. Yeah. We won't go into, who may or may not have finished last. But I'm kidding, Matt. We love you. And for those of you that have been longstanding fans of the show, obviously Matt hadn't been with us in a couple of weeks. He decided to take some time off, kind of indefinitely, which is great. I mean, that's perfectly fine. And we wish him nothing the best. We love you, Matt. But Matt left at the opportune time because it was going to be time for him to pony up a donation. But me and the CEO of Dad's Watching Sports, the CFO, Mrs. Draper, had a conversation and said, we want to honor that commitment that we made where somebody was going to make a donation. And so, Kyle, I would like to inform you that we have decided we're going to make a donation to the Red Shoes for Oakley organization in honor of Jack Castles.
We appreciate that very, very much. Wow, that means a lot. It really does. I appreciate it.
Absolutely, man. Well, we're excited to do it. And for those of you that aren't really sure what we're talking about, go back and check our last episode. Red Shoes for Oakley is a food allergy nonprofit organization, and so we want you guys to check that out because we love the Castles and we love Jack and we love what they're doing, and we want to make sure they continue to do that. So, all right, let's get past all that. Kyle, we've got a couple of topics, and then we're going to jump to our next guest, and then we'll come back and finish maybe some of our topics after our last break. Really quickly, let's go ahead and go into Rick Moranis. So I don't know if you happen to see this.
Nothing says sports more than Rick Moranis.
Nothing says sports more than Rick Moranis. But Kyle, I don't know if you happen to see this or not, but Rick Moranis has not been around in, 20, 25 years in the kind of the Hollywood movie scene. He retired, kind of took a leave of absence. I think he wanted to be supportive of his children and be there for them growing up. Well, my man was walking out of what I'm guessing is maybe his apartment or a restaurant or something in New York City and just gets sucker punched. Yeah. Out of nowhere. It turns out there's a serial sucker puncher in New York City who has been going around punching people in the face, and Rick Moranis just happened to be in the wrong place at the wrong time.
We laugh. It's not funny.
It's not funny at all. But it does bring up a name, a blast from the past. I mean, we're kids of the 80s and 90s, and Rick Moranis is really, one of the bigger movie stars of that generation.
He was that mid to late 80s, early 90s, like quintessential dad.
Absolutely.
In all the movies.
I feel like we should have him on this show. I think I need to reach out to Rick.
I would love to have Rick Moranis on the show.
Because we're dads, he's acted in a couple of movies that had to do with sports. I feel like he'd be in.
Yeah.
I feel like he'd be in. But anyways, speaking of movies and Rick Moranis, it led me to the thought of what are his top movies? I mean, we know some of them, but what are your top 3 Rick Moranis movies?
So I'm going to go 3-1. That okay?
That's perfect.
All right. So 3, it's probably the first Rick Moranis movie I ever saw, and Honey, I Shrunk the Kids.
Okay. Yeah, that's nice.
I think I saw that one before Ghostbusters, I think. Ghostbusters didn't make the top 3, but I'm throwing it out there because, it's Ghostbusters and it's still a good movie. 2, it's got to be Little Giants.
Okay. I think, I have a feeling we have the exact same top.
Because, number 1, there's really no doubt he's the big helmet, right? Like, it's Spaceballs.
Oh, we literally have the exact same top 3.
I'm sorry. Guys, we don't talk about this. This is just...
We do no show prep. Let's be honest. There's no show prep before these shows. I have Honey, I Shrunk the Kids at number 3, Little Giants at number 2, and Spaceballs at number 1. Because that's the way it should be.
Exactly. I'm glad you were correct this time, and I didn't have to tell you that you were wrong.
Well, speaking of being wrong, that brings me to my next topic that I wanted to get with you. So, last week you talked about going out to California, and you talked about In-N-Out Burger and how that was just kind of the greatest burger there was. And if you remember correctly, I may have tossed another name out there. Some people may be familiar, Whataburger, especially if you're in the Texas area. So we put it to the people, Kyle, because the listeners of Dad's Watching Sports, those that support our show, they know best. And so we put it on Facebook, we put it on Instagram, we put it on the Twitter machine, Kyle. And Kyle, I'll be honest, I was a little shocked by the results. Handily across all 3 platforms. I'm talking like at least 70%. Whataburger absolutely demolishes. It was a Alabama versus Kentucky butt whooping. And that pains me to say that. So give us what do you have to say for your In-N-Out burger falling incredibly short?
Look, the dads watching Sports Nation love them. They're wrong. They're just wrong. No. I've had both. I know both. I'm fat, so I know what I'm talking about when it comes to food.
You know, I don't know if you remember this, but back during the summer, when we were really looking for topics, we did the chicken sandwich debate. So maybe, we figure out a way to do. I know Whataburger is coming to Nashville at some point in time. There's got to be an In-N-Out somewhere.
No, so In-N-Out because they want freshness and because of where they source all their food. They don't come this far east. I think somewhere in Texas is about as far east as they go.
Yeah, we had one in Fort Worth. So maybe what we do is enlist our good friend Mr. Kirk
Daddy,
and say, because in Fort Worth, Texas, I know because I've been to both of these establishments in Fort Worth. There is an In-N-Out and there is a Whataburger, and so maybe we get Mr. Kirk to go and do a live eating at both places.
I think this needs to happen.
I think it does. We'll reach out to Mr. Kirk after that. All right, we're going to put the rest of our middle segment topics on hold right now because we're going to bring on our next guest. His name is Jon Rawl. He's with the y'all.com. John, how are you, sir?
I am great. Thank you for the opportunity to come on DWS.
That's right, absolutely. So for a little behind the scenes here, so John and I know each other from it's been well over 10 years through my days back at Mississippi State, and then did some radio stuff together as well. But John, tell us a little bit about yourself and about y'all.com.
Thank you very much. Y'all is the ultimate guide to the South, and I am the publisher and all the other fun stuff that goes along with that. And what I do and what the website is a snapshot of everything going on in the 16 southern states where they say y'all and where they say it and people don't get laughed at when you say it. And our website covers news. We cover a little politics. We cover a lot of food, lots of sports, and a lot of fun. And we just encourage everybody to go to YALL.com, bookmark it. Also go to our Facebook page and make sure you subscribe to us there on Facebook. We do a lot of video interviews, a mixture of all types of stuff, ACC, SEC, Big 12, but we have small college sports as well. We have lots of other great interviews. We love to do the stuff that you're not going to find anywhere else in the South that kind of accentuates our unique Southern culture, and we kind of package it all right there at y'all.com.
So tell our listeners and our watchers how did this all kind of come together? I know the story behind this, but how did you come up with y'all, and how did all this kind of bubble up together?
Y'all.com and y'all, the brand, the magazine. We had a magazine for 8 years. It was all over the South. It all kind of evolved in 2002. I was a guy who had gone to Mississippi to go to graduate school, and I'd worked in journalism in Nashville for a long time and kind of had done it my whole life, and just saw the need as a guy who was a freelance writer for lots of publications. There was nobody out there really doing something very Southern. Even the number one regional magazine in the country, Southern Living, let's be honest, it's not that Southern. It's not that Southern to have a garden or a flower or a decorate a room. But so we wanted to capture something that was just about the South, the mixture, like what I said, the unique fact that the South is in its own way, kind of its own country, its own culture, its own food. Certainly the sports down here are different from the rest of the country. And we wanted to focus on the people of the South. And that's what we did with the printed magazine. That's what we've continued to do with YALL.com. And what we've done with all the different sports stuff, of which you were a very key part of us getting that going some 15, 16, whatever it's been years ago.
You're not old at all, are you, Mike?
Yeah, no, it's hard to believe. No, I was reminiscing on that the other day of the days of the Bully Bark line and Kentucky Cat line and Tennessee Howl line and all that. It was.
Do you remember who was one of the co-hosts on Tennessee Howl line?
I do remember we had Clay Travis on.
He was a co-host.
Yeah. I do remember that early on, having him on and thinking, man, this guy knows his stuff, because he had written that book, Dixieland Delight, and so we had gotten him on for that. Yeah, it's unfortunate that now he is where he is, and here we are hosting Dads Watching Sports. Yeah, Kyle,
he's not answering my calls either, in case you're wondering.
Yeah, no, he's not mine either. But Clay, if I remember correctly, I think Clay got all of his professionalism or lack thereof in terms of the way he handles himself on the radio from me. So I take full credit for all of his.
Now, he is a father, so he's a dad. So if he wants, Clay, I know you're listening, Clay, if you want to jump on, come on.
we'll get him on.
I think you taught Clay the whole DBAP thing.
That's right. Honey, if you're listening, I did not do that. So, John, obviously we talk a lot of sports here, but a big part of our show is dad life. We kind of try to incorporate that into everything that we do, every topic that we talk about. So talk to us a little bit about that perspective for you, because I know you're a dad as well.
I am a proud dad. I have had a pretty good life. I'm sure all of us would agree with what we've each had. But my life would not be anywhere where it is now without my son. I've had some real bad bumps in the road over the last 15, 20 years. And the highlight of all the bumps and all the highs was the birth of my son. I've got a 10-year-old redheaded boy now. And frankly, when you do a show like Dad's Watching Sports, one of the big things that brings my son and I together is sports. Going to different sports. He, at 10 years old, did something I never did until I was probably well into my 30s, and that was to attend a professional football, basketball, and baseball game, and in some cases, multiple games like that, in addition to a bunch of college games. And we just love to be with each other. And like I said, it's for all the hiccups I've had along the way, just being a father it's truly the greatest title I have.
Yeah, well, I know Kyle and I would agree with that as well. And, one thing that we really enjoy, and kind of like you said, is just getting out, either sitting at home and watching a ball game with our children or child, or getting out to games. So any specific games that stand out for you and your son that you've either been to or taken in?
Well, we have our favorite teams, but frankly, the teams that we went, and when you talk about a favorite memory, is we went May of last year. If you have a large audience here in the South watching DWS, take advantage of the fact in normal times that we in the South, often our youngsters get out of school somewhere toward the end of May.
Yep.
Well, the Yankee kids, they often go to school somewhere into June. And so late May last year, 2019, that is, he and I went on a road trip. We went all the way to the Windy City, and we were able to catch a Cubs game, which he and I don't like the Cubs, but it is one of the best traditions in all of sports. We don't like the Cubs because of their annoying fans. So let's be honest.
Oh, boy.
Whoa.
They have the worst.
My oldest son's name is Wrigley. I'm just going to say that.
They have one of the best traditions, but the most annoying fans out there.
Oh, man. So, Kyle, you get this because earlier in the show you called out Bill, who was our previous guest, for being a Packers fan. So
okay, so we went and saw Wrigley Field and had a great experience. Wrigleyville is one of the coolest places going. I'm a country music guy. I worked at CMT in the 90s in Nashville. The best country music bar I've ever been to was in Wrigleyville. So, again, I give Chicago and certainly the North Siders a lot of credit. And my son and I went up there. We spent the night. We went there and caught it when they had a Cubs home game one day and a White Sox game the next day. In fact, it was Memorial Day weekend, and we went and saw the Cubbies on the Sunday of Memorial Day, and they lost, by the way, which was fun. They lost to the Reds. And then on the Monday of Memorial Day, we went to see the White Sox play the Kansas City Royals, of which I'm not a big fan of either one of these teams. But I kind of feel sorry for the Sox, so I was kind of hoping they would win. One of the coolest things I did, though, when I was at the White Sox game is they really have to go out of their way there to draw fans. And so they have a lot of free. They don't have a lot of free. They got a lot of really cheap tickets, and they have a lot of activities. And so they have this kids area that my son and I went to. They're in the left field of whatever it's called, Guaranteed Rate Stadium, I think. And when we were out there visiting with their mascot Southpaw, I got to see a guy who really is one of my acting heroes, and he could not have been nicer. And I would not have even noticed him if he hadn't been wearing a Chicago hat. But it wasn't the Cubs or the White Sox. He was sporting a bright orange Chicago Bears hat at the end of May. And that was actor Ron Livingston, who starred in Band of Brothers, my favorite television series. And my son had seen a lot of Band of Brothers episodes because I named my son Knowlton after my great uncle, who was killed in World War II as a paratrooper. And so my son kind of knew about Band of Brothers, and we were able to get our picture with Ron Livingston, who, of course, was in Office Space and a bunch of other stuff. And so that was a great little memory and a great fun road trip that we had there going up to Chicago. But, my son and I, we're kind of homers. We like our Braves. and we like our Titans, and we certainly love our Carolina Panthers and our Charlotte Hornets, although it's hard to follow NBA, and of course our college teams he and I are in argument with. But anyway, we have had a great time. It's like I said, it's the best honor being a father.
Yeah, no, absolutely. And again, I think that's something that I know I already enjoy is sharing your fanhood and just everything that has to do with sports with your kids. My kids obviously are big Kentucky fans as they've taken after dad. And we've got some family members that work for Alabama. And so they've, anytime that we see them, they're like, oh, come on, Emma, say Roll Tide. She's like, oh, no, we don't say Roll Tide. We say Go Big Blue. And, it brings a little tear in my eye every time she does it because it's just so great. So, John, one thing I wanted to ask you about is because I know you're familiar with the area is South Carolina. There's a name that's been coming up around that job a lot, and it's a name that used to be at Ole Miss. And that's Hugh Freeze. So I wanted to get your take on, does Hugh Freeze get a chance to coach in the SEC again next year at South Carolina? If not, is there anybody you can think of that they might go with instead?
If Ross Bjork has anything to do with it, I would say no, because remember, Ross Bjork was the athletic director at Mississippi, and now he's at Texas A&M, and those two had a lover's quarrel. And Freeze got a lover's quarrel over a lover's quarrel, I guess you could say. Yeah. And ultimately, Ross Bjork called up Hugh Freeze on his burner phone and delivered the bad news that he was out of there. I don't think he's going to get hired. We're already seeing some people come out and say that Freeze is not entertaining any other options. I think South Carolina can do better. Let's not forget, I know he's done pretty well at Liberty, minus a loss to NC State. But let's not forget when he was coaching in Oxford, he made some bonehead decisions as a coach. I know there was a game at LSU they should have won, and he got greedy, and the pass ended up, I think Bo Wallace was the quarterback that year, got intercepted when they could have maybe at least gone to overtime. And a bunch of other decisions. I know against Texas A&M at least twice he screwed up there as a coach. Hey, he screwed up in the NCAA world. We know they got into a bunch of recruiting violations and such. Let's not forget that. And I think he's had his opportunity in the bright lights of the SEC, and he kind of blew it. And let him go to Liberty. Let him go to the purgatory of the Shenandoah Valley or wherever the heck Lynchburg is located and clean up his act. Odd enough, isn't it strange that Hugh Freeze is still hanging on at Liberty and Jerry Falwell Jr., the son of the founder and the president, is out of there for ethics and stuff. Yes. But I don't know who South Carolina could get. I'll tell you one dark horse nobody has mentioned, but I think this guy's got an up-and-coming future, and you're not going to hear anybody else mention it. Heck, I didn't even know the guy who he was until I was looking at something the other day. I think his first name's Jim Leonard, spelled a little bit different, but he's a longtime NFL player who is currently the defensive coordinator at Wisconsin, and he's got a bright future. I think some of that Big Ten can come to the South minus Michigan and minus Penn State right now. Right. Although James Franklin would be a good choice, I think. Yeah, I think he's a guy that ought to be getting some looks here pretty soon there at Wisconsin.
There you go. Yeah, no, absolutely. Wisconsin, even though they got beat last night, they were one of my sleepers, Kyle.
Well, it wasn't the defense's fault that they lost that game. When you hold Northwestern, I think, to 17 points, you ought to be able to win a ball game. I think another dark horse in that South Carolina and maybe a fan favorite, and frankly, hey, he could be the next Dabo Swinney just because he can fire up the fan base. Connor Shaw.
Okay,
Michael, I think you might be his doppelganger. Connor Shaw is someone who's just got elevated on the coaching staff there of Coach Bobo from kind of a non-coaching role to now being a quarterback coach of some type. And he's already done a couple of press conferences. And look, South Carolina needs an excitement boost to that program, an excitement enema, if you will. And Connor Shaw, I think, can deliver that. If I know he's young, but he's a guy also that's got the NFL experience behind him, and certainly he knows how it is to win at Williams-Brice Stadium.
That he does. He had a lot of success there with Coach Spurrier. So let's stick in college football. One thing that we try to do every single week is just pick a couple of games. So we started with SEC games, and we've kind of branched out now that some of the other conferences have started playing. So, John, if you'll be our celebrity guest picker, as they have on game day. That's right. So let's go with the first game.
Wait. You can't get started without telling John who's leading in these picks.
It's just minor details.
I guess if you're asking or bringing that up, Kyle, I guess that would be you.
It's not even close.
It's not even close. Let's just be honest. Kyle, as he will tell you many times over, played college football, and so therefore he knows the most about football in general. And so,
no, not just football, everything.
Exactly.
There you go.
Yeah.
College football where?
Sanford, down in Birmingham.
Oh, you're a SoCon guy. I am too.
Well, we were OVC when I played, but
okay.
They're now in the SoCon.
Yeah, SAMU. I love it. Been there to many games.
It's a beautiful campus.
Small campus. Like
it
very
is.
Small.
Yes.
Well, let's get to a couple of campuses that are not so small. And we've got the Fighting Irish of Notre Dame going to North Carolina. Notre Dame, undefeated, really on a fast track to the ACC championship game if they can get over this hurdle and potentially the college football playoffs. So, John, you got the Irish at the Tar Heels. Can Mac Brown pull off an upset and upset the Irish?
Yes, he can. Yes,
All right.
he can. North Carolina, other than one or two games that I don't understand how they lost them, they're good. He's got a very talented sophomore QB there in Chapel Hill, and this being at Keenan, I think they can easily win this game.
I think they can, but I don't know. I feel like Notre Dame's, for the past 2 decades has been right there but not able to make it. Right there, not able to make it. I think getting that win over Clemson kind of got that monkey off their back of not being able to win a big game and to be in contention for the playoffs. So I'm going to take Notre Dame to win that game and continue on their undefeated march. Kyle.
Yeah, I'm picking Notre Dame as well. I think it's going to be, this close. But I think Notre Dame makes enough plays to squeak one out and set up that rematch with Clemson.
There we go. All right, Kyle, we'll stick with you. We got the Iron Bowl, Auburn and Alabama. I believe it is at Auburn this year.
Nope. Tuscaloosa.
Is it not? It is in Tuscaloosa? Okay. So, yeah, you got number 1 Alabama, who's just been flexing on everybody here recently. Auburn has kind of struggled throughout the year, but they looked really good against LSU, but that's not saying much. You got the Tigers or the Tide?
I mean, I don't think this one's, I said that one, the last one, that it's not going to be that close. Bama by 24.
Okay. I don't know that I necessarily disagree with you, and that's because, my team just got to be by 60 by Bama. So I agree. I think Bama wins. I don't know that it'll be 24, but I don't think there's ever a moment in the game where people think, oh, Auburn could win this. So I'll take Bama as well. John.
Let's make it unanimous. Alabama rolls.
The Rolling Tide. All right, the last game is one that is familiar to all of us. We've all been in attendance. We've all been there to see the highest and highs and the lowest and lows for both of these teams. We've got the Egg Bowl. I will go first. And, because I paid so much money and owe such a great gratitude to the Mississippi State University for 5 years of what was just excellent academic achievement, I am going with the Bulldogs to pull off an upset here and keep that golden egg. Kyle, I'll give you the second pick.
Look, I started going to Mississippi State games when I was 2 years old. I hate Ole Miss, and I can't pick Ole Miss. So go to hell, Ole Miss, Hell State.
There we go. All right, John, I think I know where you might be going with this.
Oh, you do, eh? So Lane Kiffin has a high-octane quarterback. He's got a very good receiver. Yep. He's got a team that just destroyed South Carolina before they got shut down by the virus and should have played at Texas A&M this past week. It's a home game. Everything's going great all of a sudden in the Shark Tank. Well, that's not the way the Egg Bowl works out normally. It's always the team that shouldn't do well comes in and just, for some unexplained reason, finds a way to win. And we saw Mississippi State look pretty good this past week. They nearly pulled off a big win at Sanford Stadium. And I don't think Mississippi State can stop Mississippi's, I should say, their offense. Corral, they look good. Mm-hmm. You tell me, y'all follow State more than I do. Is State capable of at least not totally slowing down, but just a little bit? Can they slow down the Sharks at all?
Realistically, no.
No,
but I can't bring myself to pick that school up north.
Y'all are not helping me out here. I thought you were going to say if they could just slow them down a little tiny bit, the Pirate was going to find a way to get the road win. I'm going to stay with Mississippi State. I just know how crazy this series has been.
It has been.
And let's say that I'm looking at their schedule. They got LSU scheduled the following week in Baton Rouge. I think they're looking ahead. And I think that the Sharks will be bitten by the Pirate this week.
Here we go. It's so weird to not have these games, as the last game of the season that we're so accustomed to. It's just weird. It's just been a weird year. All right, now let's get to much more important business here. John, it is week of Thanksgiving. When people are listening to this show, they very well might be sitting down, have just to bless their food and maybe sitting down to eat their Thanksgiving dinner while listening to Dad's Watching Sports. At the Rawl household, your top 5 Thanksgiving side dishes. What do you got?
For Thanksgiving 2020, well, as of right now, sadly, I don't have any plans. I think my son might even have the coronavirus, so wish him well.
Oh, no. Absolutely.
I should have mentioned and maybe a lot of your viewers and people part of your show are sadly in this category. I'm a divorced father. And so when I talk about with my son talking sports, frankly, a lot of times we do it from afar because we're not together all the time. And so I don't know if we're going to be together yet or not, especially now that he may or may not have the virus, just a part of the craziness of 2020. So whether he's with me or not, I'm going to go ahead, if you don't mind, just throw out my 5 top Southern side dishes for Thanksgiving. And I think it starts off with the best maybe first for me, and that's sweet potato souffle. Oh, my goodness. I could eat that every meal, every day, sweet potato souffle. How about this one? The green bean casserole, always a favorite at any kind of holiday occasion. You have the classic dinner roll. I know it's easy to make other bread choices, but the dinner roll just goes so well, especially a little butter on it at Thanksgiving time. Also, I'm a fan of this when you have lots of choices. This seems to be just the kind of little thing you want to put a little bit on your plate just to kind of give you something completely different. The broccoli bacon salad, the casserole deal that they're kind of mixed in together. I don't normally eat broccoli. Broccoli I just don't like it. But boy, when you mix it in, you get that kind of sauce that goes with it.
Yeah,
that's quite good. And then, of course, my last choice goes back to my heritage in South Carolina, having grown up literally on a collard green farm. I have to throw out there collard greens or turnip or mustard greens, whichever of the 3. But here's the twist, and I encourage all your viewers to try this, and don't laugh at me because it's actually Southern. Try your greens with ketchup. Just put some ketchup on your collard greens, and I bet you'll like it. And if you don't, send your hate mail to Michael Draper.
That's right. Oh, that's funny. Man, we eat a lot of collard greens in our house, and I've done mustard. I've done hot sauce. I have never done ketchup. So we have some collard greens downstairs. I might fix them this week and try just that. That's an interesting choice. Well, John, man, thanks so much for coming on with us and talking sports and dad life and collard greens and everything else. Just kind of quickly again for our viewers and listeners, tell them where they can find y'all.com and everything that you got going on there.
Well, thank you, Kyle and Michael, for allowing me to come on. I wish both of you a very happy Thanksgiving, all your viewers as well. And again, check out y'all.com, the ultimate guide of the South. We've got a lot of Thanksgiving-related articles up now, more to come, and we'll be adding more video interviews each and every week to the ultimate guide of the South, y'all.com. Check it out on Facebook as well. Thank y'all very much. And for everybody out there, may your favorite team pull out the victory here this week.
That's right. Absolutely. All right, John, thanks so much. Guys, we're going to go to a quick break. When we come back, Kyle and I will get into some more dad and sports talk. We'll be right back on Dad's Watching Sports. In addition to college football picks, one thing dads can't agree on is when to put up the Christmas lights. But what we can agree on is that Christmas lights are awesome. So do you live in the greater Nashville area and love Christmas lights? If so, reach out to the show by emailing dadswatchingsports@gmail.com, and we'll get you set up with tickets to the Dancing Lights of Christmas in Lebanon. Tickets are just $15 for some COVID-approved fun and getting out of the house. All sales benefit the Tennessee Kidney Foundation. So again, email us at dadswatchingsports@gmail.com for more details. Now back to the show. That's right, Kyle. Get you some Dancing Lights tickets.
Man, you have changed I told you I don't do change. What is going on?
Man, we've got to continue to move on, man. This is Dad's Watching. We got 2 guests. We got fancy background. We got commercials. We got children popping up everywhere. This is amazing. It's been a good week.
Apparently
it has. Let's get to a couple of comments that came in throughout the show. This is a great one. So Whataburger is king in Texas, TJ, and they're king in our hearts as well. TJ also says he thinks Notre Dame's going to pull away late in the game in their game against North Carolina, and that he thought Bama would win by 21 against Auburn. And then Kyle, Mrs. Castles thinks you're not a fan of the ketchup suggestion with the ketchup.
I've never thought about it. I was shocked when he said it. I'm a hot sauce guy on my greens. Yeah. We actually so yesterday was Wrigley's 6th birthday party. He'll turn 6 on Wednesday. I think that's the 25th. I know the date. I just don't know if like the 25th is Wednesday. Yeah, but anyways, so he'll turn 6 at his party and so we slept in. We were up till like 2 Friday night or Saturday morning, Friday night, putting it all together, and we didn't sleep in. So we didn't go to church. We slept in, and
heathens.
I know, right? Then we went and had brunch at Cracker Barrel. Shout out to Cracker Barrel.
A little Sunday brunch. Very nice.
A little Sunday brunch, and I got me some greens while I was there. Put a little Tabasco on them, and that's the way to do it.
It is, yeah. Like I said, we eat a lot of greens in our household.
Actually, I thought I knew where he was going with it because I've actually seen some people put syrup, like pancake syrup, in there and make them a sweet green.
Interesting. I cannot say that I have ever done that, but I guess to each their own. If everybody likes the sweet and spicy. All right, Kyle. So one thing I wanted to get your take on this week is your boy Theo is out as GM of your Chicago Cubs. I mean, you got to tip your hat to the guy. He brought a World Series to Chicago, something someone had not done in a very, 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 very long
108 years.
108 years to be exact. Let's give our man. I wish we've got to incorporate some little music or something in these days, but let's give our ode to Theo from diehard Cubs fan Kyle.
Yeah. Theo, thank you for doing the impossible. Thank you for ending the curse. Thank you for giving us something to be proud of as Cubs fans. Thank you for building a team that has been so much fun to follow. Thank you for a world championship. Rest easy knowing that you are a Hall of Famer, for being the person that built teams that broke the most infamous curses in professional sports.
Amen. I feel like we had to end it with somehow.
Look, that is about the way I'm gonna get real personal here. That's about the way James Draper would have ended a sermon way back in about 1998.
That's right. Except there would have been a couple times where he choked up a little bit, got a little teary-eyed.
Absolutely.
And then everybody probably sitting back thinking, almost exactly a year ago, didn't this exact sermon come out?
And didn't you choke up at the exact same time?
That's right. Hey, James knew when to pull the heartstrings, man. He's trying to get somebody for an altar call. Come on now. Just come on down. The water's fine, literally and figuratively. All right, Kyle, one thing I wanted to bring up on this show, because I just simply do not understand how this is going to happen, and I'm a little confused by it all, and that's the Pro Bowl. So they've announced that the Pro Bowl is going to be something along the lines of where people are going to be playing this via video game. And correct me if I'm wrong about it. This is only, again, show prep, not really my thing. So this is only kind of word of mouth / reading an article or two. But it sounded as if, let's say, Patrick Mahomes is voted into the Pro Bowl, that he is going to be playing as himself in his position in the game. Is that not what that's clearly not what you heard?
Now, I could be wrong because talk about lack of show prep. If you read an article, you're better than me.
Well,
I thought they were just going to put the guys on the Pro Bowl rosters and let the video game computer engine run a simulation.
okay. Could be it. Sure. Pro Bowl.
Look, here's the thing. It's the Pro Bowl. Who cares?
Nobody cares. But it's just the fact that they're going to do this through a video game is just. I mean, I know. Trust me, I get it. COVID 2020. I know what we're dealing with, but there's got to be a different way to do that. It did kind of lead me to the thought of kids and video games. You and I both are people that we currently play video games. While it may not be as much as we used to, because I know we used to a lot. But when you think of your kids. And how they're going to have that kind of readily available at their fingertips, especially if it's already in our houses. What are your and Mrs. Castle's stance going to be when it comes to video games / devices / whatever?
So
what is your stance?
Yeah, so we don't encourage video games.
Yeah.
Right now, they know that I play them. Usually, I play them when no one else is around.
Yep.
Just so that they don't see me doing it a whole lot. I don't play a whole lot at all, but I do enjoy Madden. I have bought every Madden game since 1997.
Who was on that cover?
John Madden.
Ooh, that's right.
The first player was 2001. That was Eddie George.
Eddie. Nice.
Yeah. So there you go. Eddie George. We'd love to have you on the show too. So shout out to Eddie.
Coming for you, Eddie.
So yeah, I'm not a big fan of video games. Not a big fan of devices. Wrigley just started kindergarten this year and got his first report card back, and they rate him 1 to 3, and 3 being the best. And one of the things that he got graded like it doesn't matter in kindergarten, but was his ability to use technology. Ooh. And they gave him a 2. And we said, we're going to count that as a win because that means our kid doesn't sit around and play on iPads or computers or whatever it is that kids play on now.
Yeah.
But I will tell you that most gaming for, younger kids is actually done on a phone or an iPad and not with a console on the TV anymore.
Yeah. So. Yeah. That's kind of what we've realized within the, first couple of years of Emma. We really try to limit screen time, I guess you could call it, with like an iPad or something, only when we're traveling. And that's just for sanity purposes. I mean, we will, every once in a while, if she just begs and pleads for her, she has like this little purple Amazon iPad. We'll let her have 30 minutes or so, but we try as much as we possibly can because, man, I agree, man, it just sets a bad habit. And so I think if we can continue to just have those limitations, and our kids love to play outside, and so that's where we always push them. Let's go outside. Let's go outside. Let's go outside. Let's go do something outside. And so, as a byproduct of someone who had video games, I don't have a problem with them, but as with everything, only in moderation.
But look, you and I both know, like, we played too many video games and played video games too much growing up.
And way too late in the evening.
Way too late. And so, we both had.
Well, I had to take college algebra 3 times because of video games.
We both had to. We both had TVs in our rooms, and I know I had one by probably 6 or 7.
Yeah.
And I'm assuming, I was thinking you were about the same way, and that's something we're not doing with our kids. I think that built habits that I'm now 34, about to be 35, that I'm still trying to break and get a handle on.
Yeah, for sure. No, absolutely. We're in the same boat there. All right. So we've already gone through our college football picks. We'll end the show with this. We talked about just a second ago. We got these rivalry games. They're normally at the end of the season. There's this huge buildup, and it's these games that are so important because it has playoff implications and bowl implications and all this and all that. It stinks that we don't have that this year, and we're not going to have that really. But looking at rivalries across college football, you've got all the traditional ones. But if you had to pick – not necessarily what you think are the best, or it could be the best, but what are your top 5 rivalry games in college football? Why don't you go 5, then I will, you 4, me, and vice versa.
So at number 5, I got a feeling we may have the same top 5.
We could.
At number 5, I have the Egg Bowl, State Ole Miss, partly because that's where I grew up. Like I said, going to Mississippi State games starting at 2 years old. I mean, that was the thing. But the Egg Bowl is one of the most underrated and underappreciated rivalries. There's a lot of hatred. I mean, you go back to just last year and Elijah Moore, who has just broken out and turned into a heck of a wide receiver this year. But Elijah Moore does the pea and dog celebration, and that causes, an Ole Miss loss. 1926-27. Ole Miss breaks a long losing streak to Mississippi State in Starkville, and the Ole Miss fans storm the field. And they want to pull down the goalpost in Starkville. And, we don't have bleachers like we have now, and everybody was sitting in wooden chairs, and it turned into WWF where the State fans came out with wooden chairs and started breaking them over people's heads and backs.
That's one of the best stories I've ever heard.
So, those things are real in this rivalry. So, give me the Egg Bowl at number 5.
I love the Egg Bowl. I've been to many and been seen a lot of really good games, a lot of really bad games, but a lot of good games as well. But it did not crack my top 5. I've got number 5. When you have a game called the Holy War, I feel like you have to include that in the top 5. So I've got BYU versus Utah. I know traditionally this is not a game that's going to decide a team going to a national championship or a team now going to a playoff, although it could, with both of these teams have been in that scenario within the past couple of years. But anytime something's just called the Holy War, I feel like it's got to have a big place for us. So I've got BYU, the Cougars, and the Utes at number 5. I'll go with my number 4, and then I'll toss it to you. All so right. My number 4, I'm going down to the Sunshine State. I've got Florida State, and I know – for the past few years, it's been one-sided Florida. The years before that, it was one-sided Florida State. But, man, in the 90s when you had Bowden and Spurrier and Warfel and Cannell and all those guys and Charlie Ward, I mean, that was a huge rivalry. And I know Miami's been a part of that in Florida as well. But I've got number 4. I've got the Gators and the Seminoles just because they're so talented almost every single year, and it means a lot. And they're not in the same conference. And so I've got that as my number 4.
Well, we don't have the same top 5 then because my number 4 is different from you as well. Look, when you're talking about the best rivalries, and I tried to do best rivalries in college football, I think there's got to be a lot of history, and quite frankly, Florida and Florida State are newcomers when it comes to college football. Fair. At the very top, and Florida State's not there anymore now. But there are 2 teams down in the Mid-South that for decades were always in contention for national titles. And that's Oklahoma and Texas in the Red River rivalry. And so I got that at number 4.
Okay. No, that's a good pick. My number 3, a lot of people may even have this as number 1, but I've got it as my number 3. And again, this one's been very one-sided recently. It's Michigan and Ohio State. You think about the teams that have come out of that rivalry game that have won national championships, the coaches, the players. That's just a huge rivalry. There's a big hatred there as well. So I've got Ohio State and Michigan as my number 3.
Yeah, that's actually my number 3 as well. And I mean, Woody and Bo, right? They kind of built it. So again, gotta be
Michigan. Wouldn't it be nice to see Michigan win some of those every once in a while? Or be competitive?
I think they got a chance to. I think what they got to do is go out and get another Ohio State guy to coach them.
Yeah.
And I think Luke Fickell is right there waiting. Yep. Get rid of. I understand John Harbaugh's the Michigan guy, and they love him, but Luke Fickell's right there. So yeah, I got Ohio State, Michigan as well at number 3.
Who you got at number 2?
Number 2. Look. We're in the South, so this may be a little biased, but it's the Iron Bowl, right? It's Bama Auburn. When you have people that are willing to go and poison trees,
yep,
it means something, right? It just means more in the South.
That's what they say on the SEC network. I think we have the same top 2 then, because I have number 2. I have the Iron Bowl as well. I mean, again, like you said, it's the best rivalry in terms of. I think if you put at least in the past 50 years, if you put the rivalry game that probably means the most in terms of outcome for a season, it very well may be the Iron Bowl. And then I'll probably spoil our number 1. My number 1's Army Navy. I think it has to be, just given the tradition, what's at stake. And of course, we're not talking national championships anymore, although we did for a long period of time. But we're talking about just the epitome of competitiveness, of respect, of dignity, of manhood, whatever you want to call it. It's got to be Army Navy.
Yeah, I mean, Army Navy number one. And I mean, just the pomp and circumstance around it. There's a reason it is played separate from the rest of the regular season.
Yep.
It's that big a deal. It doesn't get better than seeing the cadets that all come through and they're sitting on opposite sides, and there's a lot of Americana wrapped up into the game and stuff, and usually the president
pageantry.
There's you a word, brother.
There is you a word. All right. Well, let's wrap up the show with this then. We're talking rivalries, and we talked, there's some games this week. There's a couple of games going on. There's these huge rivalries. We're going to talk about it a little bit more in depth next week about just rivalries in sports. But one thing that I think is a delicate topic for us as dads is, I mean, we both grew up in the state of Mississippi. We both grew up in that divide being on the Mississippi State side, and we were taught to hate Ole Miss. I mean, just no qualms about it. As a Kentucky fan, I have a what I would consider a unhealthy hatred of Tennessee and Louisville. And if we're talking basketball, Duke is thrown in that. Yes, L's down forever. But how do we navigate having that, speaking that, and then having little ears who hear that and then say, well, why you were not supposed to do that, Dad?
Yeah. So I actually brought this up to Lauren, and her response was not hate what in real life, because she has a very real hatred for the University of Florida. Mm-hmm. As a Tennessee fan, and growing up in the 90s and Tennessee being one of the best teams in the country year in and year out, but they can't seem to get past the old ball coach and the Gators.
Without UT.
Can't spell citrus without UT. I mean, all of that. Her dad, me and him actually had this conversation. He says that he made a mistake building up that amount of hate in her. To be crass, I don't think she would pee on the University of Florida if it was on fire.
Hey, I feel you.
But
that's how I feel about her team.
But I think we can hate the other team for being the rival and not hate the individuals. And I think there's chances in every game where you can see, even despite the animosity between the two sides, there is a level of sportsmanship. There is a level of respect. The minute there's an injury, everything stops. There's nobody, well, maybe the drunks in the stands, but there's nobody on the field, pointing, laughing, whatever. Especially if it's a serious injury, things kind of stop, and there's the teams will, I've seen them come together in rivalry games and pray and that kind of thing. Yep. So I think those are the times that we as parents have to kind of grab and say, hey, look, while we don't like them and we're never going to say hotty toddy, we don't want to see anybody get hurt. We want to see this be a clean game, things like that.
Yeah, I agree. I mean, I think you can have those conversations of, well, son or daughter, this is all in good fun. This is all, because of sporting events. And yes, we will never wear those colors and we will never say those words. But at the end of the day, we're still going to support them as human beings and individuals. We just feel sorry for them for the choices that they've made in life to go to certain institutions and support certain teams. So I completely agree with you, but I think, I just kind of go back to, my daughter is picks up on everything, and she knows that we love the Cats, and she knows, especially around basketball season, the Cards are no good and the Vols are no good. But we also have her aunt who loves the Vols, and so we've got a delicate balance of that for sure. So, well, man, we've had a full show, 2 guests, new commercials, kids popping up. A cat wandered onto to your background at some point in time.
She's still here,
and there she is again. Sounded like a tornado was coming through for you earlier, but it's been a good one.
It's been fun. I apologize for all the interruptions on my end, but
it wouldn't be Dad's Watching Sports without it.
This is part of dad life. Is you got to deal with all of the stuff around the house.
That we do. Well, next week, I'm excited. We've got Melissa Tomlinson. She is a former comrade of mine during college. She has been coaching high school football for 12 years, is also a mom. And so we're going to switch things up a little bit, have a mom on the show next week. So interested to talk to Melissa about her coaching and just about mom life, because we don't really get that perspective too often here. Well, Kyle, it's been fun, my friend. Those participating in the live feed, thanks for checking us out. If you're checking us out by downloading the show, we appreciate it again. Leave us a review and rating and subscribe. We will see you next week on Dad's Watching Sports. Y'all take care.